I've read hundreds of YA books in my life. Some that I really enjoyed, some that I didn't enjoy so much, and a few that I liked so much that I gave them 6 stars. Today, I'm going to be ranking my top 6 favorite YA books of all time, spanning all different genres from romance to thrillers, and giving you spoiler-free reviews on them and whether or not I think you should read them as well. To start, we have a romance trilogy, The Selection. This book series follows American singer who's chosen to compete in The Selection, which is a competition where 35 girls from across the country of Ilia compete to marry Prince Maxen and become the next queen of Ilia. This is a super fun and fast-paced read for anyone who enjoys reading romance. Personally, I don't typically enjoy reading books where romance is the focus of the book. However, I actually really enjoyed this, mostly because I really enjoyed the competition aspect of it. We got to learn about all 35 of the different contestants through America's perspective. I love books where there's some sort of competition aspect, so for me that was really fun. I also really love books that are really glamorous and take place in a palace. America comes from a really poor household, so seeing her experience the glamour of the palace lifestyle was just really interesting and fun, so I really enjoyed that. And also, even though the focus was, I would say, the romance in The Selection, another thing that the book focused on was the issues with their caste system. It was essentially a system where people were put into different castes. Based on what caste they were placed in, they were only able to have certain jobs and they were only able to get a certain amount of pay. And also there was an uprising during the book series, so it didn't feel like it was just romance. It felt like there were other aspects to it too. So if you like books that have a lot of focus on romance but also have other plot elements to them, then I would definitely recommend this series. And this book is part of a trilogy. However, after that there are also 2 more books, The Heir and The Crown. This one's from the point of view of America's daughter, and she's going through her own selection, but this time she's trying to choose a prince. For me, this one wasn't that interesting because from the start it felt pretty obvious to me who she was going to end up with. Also, it could just be that I read them a few years apart, so my tastes changed, but I felt like the writing style was much worse in here. I did still think it was fun, but I didn't enjoy it as much as the main series, so I probably wouldn't recommend this as much. Coming in at number 5, we have a thriller duology, In the After. In the After is set in a world where alien creatures suddenly take over. No one knows what these creatures are, where they came from. All they know is that they suddenly appeared and they hunt and kill humans. They have terrible senses except for their sense of hearing. And this book follows Amy, who's a teenager who suddenly loses everyone she knows to the creatures. She's very intelligent though, so she's able to survive on her own, and she even finds a child who she calls Baby, and they live together as sisters for these years trying to survive in the silence. But then one day, all of a sudden, something happens and they have to change the way they live. Out of all the books I'm recommending, these 2 were definitely the darkest. It is still a YA book, so I don't think it's that bad, but it's a bit scary, and there's also some other deeper issues that are discussed later on, so I would definitely look up trigger warnings for these. I thought this was such a fun and fast-paced read though. I read each of these books in a day or 2 at most. If you liked A Quiet Place, I 100% recommend this to you because this is basically just A Quiet Place but like more in depth and with different characters. I'm actually not sure which one comes first. I tried to research it before and I believe this one came out before A Quiet Place, but they're so similar that it feels like there should be some sort of copyright somewhere. If you like romance, this book doesn't have much. There's a little bit, but it's a very, very minor plot point. I would say the main trope in this book is found family. I absolutely loved Baby and Amy's dynamic. They had such a beautiful relationship. I also feel like the characters were all really realistic. Baby sort of went through like her angsty teenage phase, I guess, for a little while. I truly loved this series. I think it was so well written and it was described so vividly. You were able to imagine everything beautifully. The only issue I had with the book was the ending of the second book felt incredibly rushed. I loved the book series all the way up until I think the last 10 to 20 pages of this book. Then all of a sudden it just sort of ended and it didn't feel like it was wrapped up very well, which was very frustrating to me because I loved it so much up until the end. So if you like books where there's like a very beautiful wrap up, I'm not sure if I can confidently recommend this to you, but overall it left such an impression on me that I was able to sort of overlook the ending. Coming in at 4th place, we have Legend by Marie Lu. This is a dystopian trilogy that follows 2 different main perspectives. The female protagonist is June and the male protagonist is Day. They are basically complete opposites. June is born into a very rich, prestigious family and Day is born into a very poor family. However, all kids from across the country have to take this exam, and based on that, it determines what kind of life they're going to have. And so June scores the highest score possible on her exam, basically securing an incredible job and the best life she could ask for. Meanwhile, Day gets the lowest score ever, and he basically becomes a criminal. One day, June's brother is murdered, and Day becomes the prime suspect. So after that, they cross paths, and they realize that the government is much more messed up than they each thought. I really enjoyed reading this book. It felt sort of like I was watching an action movie. This book does focus a lot on the romance, but it also follows a lot on like political and government issues, and so I thought the story was really intriguing. I feel like it's one of those books where it's not like a specific issue. There's a lot of books where there's like a specific start point and then an end point where it's like these characters are trying to complete some sort of mission. I don't think this book has that. It's sort of just like learning about the politics of the world and learning more about like how messed up the world is and overcoming it. One distinct thing to note about this book is the different perspectives are in different colors. So all of June's perspective is written in black font, all of Day's perspective is in gold font, and then in the second book in blue font, and then in the third book all of his perspective is in red font, which is something that's just kind of fun, and so I decided to note it. The ending, I will say, of the last book, heartbreaking. It tore my heart into a million pieces. After I finished reading it, I just sat on the floor and I like sobbed. There's also a sequel that came out, Rebel. I didn't quite enjoy this sequel. I felt sort of disconnected from the book. I don't think it added anything for me, at least based on what I remember, but there is this other book if you're interested in reading it. I really love Marie Lu's writing style overall. I also read Warcross by her, and that was also a really incredible book series. If you're interested in more by her, I definitely recommend it. This is basically like how League of Legends have like sports fantasy teams or whatever, and they fight together, but like in real life. So these people come together and they're like these celebrities who compete in this sport, which is basically an IRL video game. It's very fun, very interesting. So I also recommend that one if you like Legends. After that, we have the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman. It is a bit of a thick one, but I think it's so worth it. This book is set far in the future where people can no longer die. They've basically created a cure to aging and also a way to heal anyone who's sustained incredible injuries, even if they've literally like fallen off of a cliff. They can revive people basically no matter what. Now, the issue with that is there's now overpopulation in the world. So in order to combat that, the government creates a job, and these people are called scythes, and they basically are in charge of deciding who dies in society. Scythes basically spend their entire life doing research on people and deciding who they think should die and who they think should live. This book follows Citra and Rowan, who are put under the wing of one specific scythe, and he basically has to train them in order to become scythes in the future. Even though this book wasn't first place, I think out of all the books, this is the one that had the best plot in my opinion, and also the most well-written, well-thought-out storyline. It was such an incredibly written book. I felt so immersed in the world. I definitely recommend this for anyone who likes sci-fi. I feel like this is one of those books where I don't want to say more. I gave this sort of general book summary, but in order to really enjoy the world, I feel like you just have to sort of go into it blind after that and just see what happens. I really feel like this is one of those books that you should just give a shot because it's such an incredibly written series. The next book series I'm sure you've all heard of, The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This book takes place in the future where North America is split between the capital and then the districts. Around 70 years before this book takes place, the districts rise up against the capital. However, the capital ends up winning, and as punishment for the uprising, every single year after that war, one girl and one boy from each district would be selected to compete in a battle to the death, and only one would be able to survive. This book follows Katniss Everdeen, who's part of the coal mining district, District 12, and she's chosen to compete in her Hunger Games. This is another one of those books that I feel like is just required reading. If you haven't read the Hunger Games, I actually 100% recommend you read this. I think all dystopian YA fans would enjoy this book, and even if you don't love it, it's just the sort of book that I feel like you should read. I think it's going to be one of the classics in the future. These stories still touch my heart to this day, and thinking about them sometimes just makes me depressed. Now, speaking of being depressed, there's also two prequels. A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out like 5 years ago, and Sunrise and the Reaping came out just this year. A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes follows President Snow, and Sunrise and the Reaping follows Haymitch, who is Katniss's mentor. Both of these enhance the story so beautifully. I often don't enjoy reading prequels because I feel like sometimes they just aren't written very tastefully, but both of these books are really beautiful. I would say as a standalone book, I liked A Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds more, and it's like writing style. It was so well thought through, and I just really enjoyed reading it. However, Sunrise and the Reaping 100% enhanced my understanding and my emotional connection to the Hunger Games way more. It touches on so many characters that you didn't understand as much in the first three books, and it just makes you feel so tragically heartbroken for them. An incredible book. I love Suzanne Collins. Even though these are prequels, definitely make sure that you read the original trilogy first, because you need to read the first three books before these books will make you feel as connected to them. And if you have already read the original trilogy, but you haven't read the prequels yet, please go read them because they are incredible books. Also posting a full-length review on Sunrise and the Reaping, so definitely check that out if you're interested as well. And the final book series, my #1 favorite YA book series of all time, Shatter Me. Now, before you get intimidated by all the books, just know that the first three are like the main ones, and the next three are kind of sequels, and the top one is like another sequel that's part of another universe. So just consider a trilogy first, and I think that'll help you get into it if you're scared of the length. This is like a low fantasy YA series, and it follows Juliet, who has the power to kill people with her touch. Every single person that she touches is either killed or severely injured. Because of that, people think she's a monster, and she's sent to different prisons and insane asylums. And then eventually, she was chosen by the government to be part of this project where she would basically be used as a weapon. And it follows her realization with how corrupt the government is and exactly how she came about getting these powers and finding a new group of people who will support her through it all. This book was one that I didn't realize was so controversial, but when I joined Book Talk and BookTube more recently, I realized that a lot of people have negative thoughts about this book. To To start, the book has a lot of strikeouts at the beginning. So basically a lot of words are just crossed out. And so this is sort of written in the style of a diary. A lot of people said it was hard to get into. For me, I was very drawn in right from the first page. And I actually really enjoyed the writing style because it sort of shows how much emotional turmoil Juliet's going through and also all of her negative thoughts that she has. So I really, really enjoyed the book at the start. For me, it was a book that I was completely and fully immersed in from page 1 all the way till the end. There wasn't a dull moment for me, and it didn't feel hard to get in. The Goodreads review for Shatter Me is quite low, which I was really surprised on because for me, it was one of my favorite books in the series. So if you have seen reviews on this and were discouraged by people saying they didn't like the first book, personally, I really enjoyed it. If you're somebody who likes stories where people have supernatural powers, I definitely recommend this because this book follows so many interesting characters with different powers, including Juliet. And I really, really like the magic system of the world. And I also love the description of the government and the political chaos that's going on in the world. It also has a really great found family trope and love story trope. And I honestly feel like it was well written. I did read this when I was in late middle school. So because of all the recent reviews that were negative on it, I was like, maybe I was just too young when I read this. But I recently read the new book that came out, Watch Me, and I still loved it. This was so well written. The plot and storyline are honestly really great. I'm also going to post a full-length review on this book soon. So if you're interested, watch that. The first 3 books are sort of part of the revolution. The next 3 books are sort of sequels to the series. It still follows Juliet, but it follows like a sort of different storyline of what happens after. The most recent book, Watch Me, is also going to be part of a trilogy, I believe. And this book follows another character. I'm not going to spoil who because you kind of need to understand the first book to understand more. It follows a different character around 10 years after the events of the first 6 books. I just was so connected to this book series, and it made me feel the most intense emotions out of all of them. I felt so much joy and so much frustration and anger. When I was reading the series, I was totally immersed in the world. I was thinking about nothing else. I was reading from day to night. I will say I can't necessarily recommend this one like I would The Hunger Games to everybody. There is a heavy focus on romance in this book, so if you don't like romance, it might not be for you. I wouldn't say there's any spice or anything, except for the 3rd book does have a little more, but there is a heavy focus on romance, so if you don't like that, it might not be for you. If it sounds even slightly interesting to you, I would at least give the first book a chance because I love this series so much, and it's truly forever going to be one of my favorites. So those were my top 6 favorite YA series of all time. Out of every single book I read, these were the 6 that came on top. Eventually, I'm planning on making more videos with my recs from different genres, so if you're interested in any other specific recs, be sure to drop a comment down below, and also let me know if you liked or didn't like any of these book series, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!